real if you can be becoming. You can look in my palm and see the storm coming. Read the book of my life and see it overcoming. Just because the rain on your hair ain't long, and they often criticize you for your skin tone. Gonna hold your head high, cause you're a pretty woman. Get your runway stride home and keep it going. Girl, live your life. I just want to be
Don't sweat yourself.
Don't be yourself.
I just want to be
follow me, follow me, follow me, girl, be yourself. That's why I be myself. And I'm loving, don't let them get mad.
Let them get mad. Don't even be bothered. Let them get mad because they're going to be mad no matter what you do. Just live your life. Welcome to Take Center Stage. My name is Marisa Bludorn, and I am your host. I am the CEO of TCS Consulting and the editor-in-chief of Own It magazine. And tonight I have a fabulous gentleman with me. He's getting ready to take center stage and own it and share his story with us. He's our cover guy for the special issue of the Own It magazine, the National Book of the Month magazine. And so, you know, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of, we are in the season of literacy awareness. And when I began to think about that as an author myself and as a publisher myself, I began to think this is a time that we need to celebrate. We need to bring a lot of awareness to the literacy or the lack thereof that's in our country. And I just want to read this to you, and then I'm going to bring my good buddy on stage with me. In fact, you know what? Without further ado, I'm going to bring him because we need to talk about these things anyway, because he's a best-selling author. Without further ado, I'm bringing to the stage with me Mr. James. Come on, James. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing this evening?
I am so excited. Let's take a quick flash at that cover. Doesn't he look sharp? He looks so good. Oh my God. What a beautiful cover, James. What a beautiful cover. When I put that up, I just said, my God, how heartfelt, how strong it brought down the message of the story behind the story. And I was just so moved by it. I'm not sure if you got a chance to see the updated the actual casing of the magazine, but when you get off air today, go back in and look at the updated version of the issue, and you're going to see just how beautiful that backdrop to what you've designed. Who came up with that design for your picture?
Sure. You know, I have to give a big shout out to my photographer. His name is Skylar DeLong in my community. Me and him are like peanut butter and jelly when it comes to these photos. We're really a dynamic duo here. What's very funny about that area is that we were actually on the way to grab lunch. We were like, you know what? We've been shooting for a couple hours. Let's go get something to eat. And that backdrop happened to be painted on the place we were going to lunch at. And literally, we both looked at each other like, oh, man, God works in mysterious ways. And we're like, all right, well, let's just postpone this lunch. And we just kept taking the photos over and over. And yeah, and that's the cover right there. It literally is so funny how it all worked out.
Oh my God, it's gorgeous. I just love it. And you're going to love when you see the backdrop. So when you go to open the magazine and start viewing it, there's a backdrop. And when I went to go in and do some final editing today of it, I just said, oh my God, I didn't do this part. And when you see it, it's heavenly. It just looks so amazing. But today you are on the cover of the National Book Awareness Month. We're in a season of literacy. September was the family and literacy. I know November is another piece of literacy, but we're in a time when everybody goes back to school, everybody's getting educated, and here we are writing books. And so you're on that special cover. I just want to give us statistics on literacy in the United States. Is 79% according to a 2019 report by the National Center for Educational Statistics. 21% of American adults are illiterate or functioning illiterately. According to the United States Department of Education, 54% of adults in the United States have literacy below the 6th grade. That's why this is so important for us as writers to make sure that we have a voice for literacy a voice for not only the fact that we're writing books and having these heart touching and inspiring and motivation, equipping and inspiring and all these wonderful books out here, but the importance of reading. Do you remember? I know there's a significant difference in age, but do you remember the term reading is fundamental?
Yeah, that was the term that my teacher would hammer home in elementary school on the daily. That's the building block to so many things. If it's not just understanding, but it's creativity. It's like the introduction to creativity in your mind. It's an introduction of you using your imagination. Just reading those books back in the day, all the Dr. Seuss books, The Cat in the Hats, and my personal favorite, Captain Underpants. Just to see the art form, just to see the illustrations, just to see like who knew that a cartoon character in his underpants would make such an impact to my life. Just a thing like something like that, which seems so silly, is still selling millions upon millions of copies daily, yearly, excuse me. So it's important. It's definitely important.
Mm-hmm. Reading is fundamental. It helps build your vocabulary. It builds personal confidence. It increases your ability to speak proficiently. So it really does, and it increases your communication skills. So socially, you feel more apt to communicate because it increases what your topics are, the range of topics that you can talk about and discuss with people. It builds on your interests and opportunities. So reading is fundamental. And so I want to talk about what's really gotten you here today, and what you've written about, the story that you have written out about that has really, really touched home. I want to share with the audience. Of course, we want to show that beautiful cover to your book, The Light Through the Pouring Rain. There's a piece that I wanted to write, to read out loud with the audience and let them get into just where just where you were. And a piece of your journey or your experience. Is that okay if I read a little bit of an excerpt from your book? The Light Through the Pouring Rain. I was driving down the 57 freeway, heading home after acing my math exam. And when I first read this, I was like, wow, it's interesting how life happens, how we can, on one side we have something so great happening, and on the other side something else not so great happening. And so you're on the freeway, you're coming home, you're excited. I studied for the previous night, playing 50 Cent in the club, thinking that I couldn't wait to tell her about what I had just accomplished. As I took the exit, I thought about how I was going to tell her. Knock, knock. Who's there? This guy who just passed my exam. I pulled into the driveway with my music still playing. I couldn't get my seatbelt off fast enough. I opened my door and sprinted up the stairs. My family lived in the back house built on top of a garage, which had 12 stairs to get up to our home. As I got to the top, I felt this weird energy. And don't we sense that? I began walking toward my room and yelled, bells, bells, bells. I finally heard her. I finally heard, I'm over here. She was in my mom's room with my mom, and you could feel something was off. The energy was different. I asked, how's was the appointment? Bells and my mom gave each other this look of pain. Is everything okay? I said. Tears began running down her face. Baby, they told me I have cancer. And hence the journey began.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Woo.
That's where it all started.
Wow. What, and of course, I read on. It's interesting. You talk about the six grief stages, the six grief cycles: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, test, and then the acceptance. What was the most challenging? Like, how old were you? Would you mind sharing how old you were? Because this was a critical time for you.
Sure. During this process, I was going through from the age of 24 to 26. So 26 was the day it was how old I was when she passed away. So yeah, it was my mid-20s is when we started to go through this. She was older than I was. She's 4 years older, so she was closer to her 30s. She would never admit to that, but yeah, she was closer to her 30s. It was such a strange feeling because man, it's just you never hear about it. You never anticipate that ever happening at such a young age. And I've seen cancer hit my family before. I've seen it hit it hard with middle age, elderly, people just closer, closer in age to man. They're just older, and sorry, it's a little hard to communicate here. Trying to get the emotion here, but I've seen like my family members go through it, and my mom's a shielded or my dad's a shielded family, and to actually be in the trenches, to actually be in their appointment after appointment, actually to see the process of like the sickness, the balding, just the sick to the stomach. It's just like those are what nightmares are made of, and to go through that is like there wasn't a blueprint. I really wish there was, and that's why that was a part of the fuel to the fire to this book, was to kind of give people a real life behind the scenes look of our story, but actually like the cancer process, because so many people have the general understanding of what people go through in the cancer process, but they just kind of see weight loss, balding, sick to the stomach, chemotherapy, rinse, repeat. But like, how about the relationships that continue? Like the world, unfortunately, doesn't stop moving. The world kept going. I still had work responsibilities. She still had work responsibilities until her therapy started. My family life was still continuing. It's such a strange process, but I wanted to be able to channel all those different emotions and those different avenues inside the book. There's just so many different ways to dissect it, and I thought our story together would be able to impact the world, to kind of let them know they're not on their own, and there's not exactly age limit to when cancer could strike.
No, there's not an age limit. You said something that was very important too. You kind of grazed over it, but you said life goes on. And what you do share in the book is that her family wasn't prepared to handle this, but your family was. And so it's just like, it's beautiful, the fact that they worked with you. So you said that they weren't able to take care of her, so she actually ended up staying with you and your family. And so talk to me about your mom's role, because you talk about how your mom played a major part of this. And it seems like, Bells was with your mom, receiving the first, comfort and nurturing and support, before you even you got home to talk to her.
Sure. She's absolutely the MVP of the whole process. Just her leadership, her experience, her sense of humor, and her poise, for sure. This wasn't our first rodeo with cancer. Like I lost so many. I think it's about 8+ to cancer. Just even before losing my fiance Annabelle to cancer. So we're seasoned veterans at this point, and it's unfortunate we'd never want the experience, but we had it. And because of that, my mom was the one who always took care of everybody. And as we like to say, like, she's the one who led them to heaven, so to speak, And she was absolutely everything in this process. I tell her this every single day, and she still has yet to believe how highly I praise her all the time. But she truly is the MVP. She really meant everything to this process, And she meant everything before. She meant everything during and afterwards as well, to help me recover and get to the place I am now. She's absolutely everything, literally everything. I can never tell her that enough.
Well, it's evident her impact on you, because you have such a beautiful spirit. So James, which one of the grieving cycles did you have the biggest challenge, and how were you able to overcome it?
Oh man, every single stage presented its own problems, I would say, its own challenges to overcome. I think it was the bargaining, to an extent, was pretty hard. And the bargaining is kind of like, why wouldn't you, come on, God, like, why wouldn't you take me? Why wouldn't you take Mr. or XY to the Z person? Why did you have to take her? But all in all, though, it's we're not doing no trade-offs here. It's to each his own here. That unfortunately was the plan for my fiance. Not that I'm happy about it, but you just have to come to a place of acceptance about it, and just instead of letting those woulda, coulda, shouldas haunt you, you just accept the term that that God didn't take her like out of spite or like out of ill intention. He just took her peacefully, you know, and thankfully she went in her sleep, and that was it. You know, I think that's the way you and I would like to go. I think that's the way everybody would like to go. And for God to be able to take her peacefully meant everything to me. And no, but this is obviously, you know, 2 years removed from the situation. If we were doing this interview 2 years earlier, my mindset and mentality may have been completely different. I was still in the storm, and it was rough. My answers probably would have been, you know, a real big slap on the wrist, you know, like they would have been real probably ill-mannered, but you know, I'm in a place of peace now. And once I was able to accept it, I stopped bargaining, and I was able to overcome the other stages.
Okay. It's amazing because you were very young. I was young when my mom passed, and we had this conversation before. And audience, just know that this is not James. He's not new to the rodeo here. He's been on the Own It platform on different, and he's actually a contributing writer for Own It as well as the Take Back magazine. So we're excited to have him on board. Very young guy, but very grounded in wisdom. Grounded in maturity and strength. And so it's, you know, it's just amazing to see that your attitude is still intact after this, because this was the love of your life. You're young. I can remember, I'm reading, Annabelle really loved holidays, right? And she was telling you one of the things, like, we could live anywhere, but wherever we go, she got to be the one decorating, right?
Yeah.
So it was fun to see. You got, you know, in the book you get a chance, and let's show the book cover. So look, I'm getting happy with the technology here. Let's show the book cover. The light through the pouring rain. He didn't say rain. The light through the pouring rain, because when you lose the one that you really love, the one that you feel like you were meant to live a lifetime with, that's devastating. That's not easy, because now there's no one else. Like, eventually, I know there'll be someone else to fill those shoes, but initially it has to be challenging, because all you can think about is, you know, bells, the time, the I can hear and read in your story about how you were making plans. Part of you say, you know what? Cancer are you talking about? What is the doctor talking about? She didn't even realize the doctors were saying, she was going in for her visit, and the doctor is saying, you've been walking around with cancer for a minute here. She didn't even realize it. And he said 2 years, correct?
Correct. Yeah, for 2 years. So that's the beauty in the mission statement I always have. I always said that I would continue to honor legacy, but to be a testimony of God's goodness. And in the past, people have asked, like, what a contradiction that is. How could you honor somebody, but at the same time be a testimony of God? Isn't that the same person who took your loved one? To me, my counter has always been the same. It's I was blessed with an additional 3 years with her. So if I only had 2 years and she could have passed away at any given moment in those 3 years, you know, and those 2 years undiagnosed, we had so many experiences, so many concerts, so many trips. And, you know, and then if she would have just passed away in her sleep, I would have never known. Nobody would have ever known. So my counter to that is that I was blessed with God's goodness to be blessed with her for another 3 years. And that's how I continue to honor her and continue to walk around with my mission statement there. That's the plan, you know, and I continue to live it, you know, and I continue to tell her story to be able to honor her. And, you know, it's such a beautiful thing, because, you know, so as we speak right now, unfortunately, somebody's hearing the news. Somebody's, you know, getting the word or the conversation about, you know, a loved one's passing away. Literally as we speak right now, it's so unfortunate. But, you know, there's so many people who go by the wayside, and we don't know their names, we don't know their story. And I can't slap anybody's hand how they like to react to a loss, because who am I to judge? But what my thing was is that I wanted to honor her. I wanted people to know that, like, Annabelle Navarez would walk this area just like you would, or she would have these conversations like you and I are currently having. And, you know, she was a human being just like you and me. And I wanted people to know that. And not only to know it, but to never forget her. You know, she was not just, it's not a bias here, but she was amazing. She was 20, obviously she was 28 when she passed. She was an old soul, like really, like absolutely old school, like held me down like an anchor. My mom always said, like, she literally was like a 50s to 60s housewife. And you know, she literally would, like, had a high value for me. You know, she loved me to death. The look she would always stare at me with is like heartwarming and heart melting. And you know, we loved each other and we always pushed each other forward. And every time I had an accomplishment, she would always tell me, "Okay, that's amazing. Let's have a round of applause. But what's next? We gotta get to the next thing because you're better." You know, and one of the things that made me fall in love with her is because she saw my potential when I had no business having any potential. I didn't see it myself, and she saw it, and it was truly a blessing for somebody, your soulmate, to see that and to realize that, it was one of those things that was kind of like love at first sight, where we just, I don't know, something was different about her. And, I've gone on to say that it's been a blessing that I even get to tell her story. I was honored to even have 5 years with her. I could have the nasty negative attitude and say, come on, like I deserve the world here. But to be honest with you, I'm just here to appreciate the moment of, saying that I was her fiance.
And so, audience, I need you to understand that Annabelle is absolutely gorgeous. Annabelle is gorgeous, like gorgeous. I saw the pictures. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's absolutely gorgeous. So I could see where you could get upset about losing her. I could see you can get upset about just sweet spirit. You can see that she's sweet inside and out. But just a gorgeous, gorgeous woman. And a part of what you shared too in your story was about the importance of making sure that in the hair loss, because I remember, and we've had this conversation too, my mom's skin, when she first had chemo, which was back in the 80s, she had chemo, her skin turned gray. It wasn't the natural look. It looked gray, it was ashy looking. It did not look healthy at all. So the chemo was like, oh my God. And so you talk about the importance of making sure that she remained feeling beautiful. And then you also share a little bit about your brother and how y'all had to share space and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And how you had a special spot for Bells.
You did, it took a little bit.
Pain in the ass, but
yeah, there's my older sister Dana, then there's my brother Eddie, myself, and then my little brother Mark. So me and my brothers are 7 years apart, so we have 34, and then we had all the way to 18. So when this process is happening, my little brother's in high school, and he's living his best life, partying like crazy, like everybody did in high school. So his life continued, but to go on to that is that it took a little while before they came around to it. Not too long, thankfully. It was just a few months. Like probably we got together March 10th, and probably by the summertime they were all best friends. And it's the best thing a guy could ever ask for your significant other to get along with your family. And then to the point where they feel comfortable like alone with themselves, or like my brothers could joke around with her and stuff, and they would joke around with her all the time, and it just never stopped. That's what made everything feel so normal about this process. Is that my brother constantly just kept BSing with her, and she just kept this such a sense of humor with it, amongst all of us. I think that was the only way to do it. Just the more our sense of humor remained normal, it made the overall process easier. It didn't make it feel like the storm was rainy. Of course it was, but like instead of acknowledging the rain, it was just acknowledging the sunshine here. And that's what they did. I'm very thankful to my brothers. I verbalized it to them so many times that I could never repay them back for making the process as easy as possible, because they were in the trenches as well. They heard her get sick. They were there when she was getting hurt. They were there to see her like suffering and sick and just, stagnant in her positions. And, I'm very thankful to them as well. They play a major part, and, they made it as easy as possible, and I can never repay them for that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I can remember when my mom was passing away, and I said to my siblings later on, I said, I could kick myself. What were we doing? We were too happy go lucky. We were too happy go lucky with the whole her going on process, because we were so caught up in blessing other people and encouraging other people. And because that's what our family was like. We love people. We want to help them. We want to be a blessing to them. We always want to be positive. And we were so busy doing that it wasn't until after she was gone that we like really started to have a Selah moment and began to think about what we just lost. And so I think that's God's grace. God gives us the grace. So he does make it where you are valuing the moment. I remember you saying that you were present. It kept you present in the moment. And so we get a chance to value the moment instead of pondering the loss, because the loss has not happened yet. So you should be present in the moment and enjoy it. I just want to do a shout out to many of our viewers. So You just want to say thank you guys for viewing. Many of you on Facebook, we can't see your names because you have to give StreamYard permission to post it. But here's one, coaching a grieving client through the process now. I commend you guys because it's a tough challenge to coach people through the grieving process, because everyone grieves differently. There's so much bitterness and so much anger and so much hurt and disappointment and trauma. So I commend you. My hat goes off to you for that level of counseling. I'm so thankful for folks like you that are in that area of expertise. And here's a shout out. You can see the comments, right, James?
I can.
Yeah, you are strong. Yeah, keep the faith and obedience. Hey, Joyce, thank you for chiming in. We came in late because, James, you got to tell them, where are you? Where you at? Where you at? Tell them where you at.
I'm out here in Los Angeles, California. So we're at 7-Eleven over here.
LA is in the house. So that hits East Coast. We are interviewing with the West Coast. So there's that big 3-hour time difference. So just getting that in sync. And so, that hence me being on so late, because normally we're on during the day for the Author's Corner. And so this is the Author's Corner. We are so thankful to have you, James, to share your story. Everyone is not so transparent and open. And so, and then here's oh wow for our locations. That's the beautiful thing about the internet and being able to do like Facebook. Everything has its pros and cons, but the biggest pro is that James and I may have never met had it not been for the internet. And so this is why these opportunities shouldn't be taken lightly. It should be about bringing awareness and then helping each one of us have healthy relationships, healthy processing resources, and a healthy mindset to kind of help us through these challenges in life. And so one of the things I wanted to share with the audience was one, you shared a little bit about what inspired you to write the story. Share a little bit more about that, about how writing this. How do you feel? Because some people feel like writing is therapeutic for them. I know it was very therapeutic and freeing for me too, because you let it out there. You let it out there.
Yeah, 100%. I would say what started is, so as we were going through the cancer process, I started to, as I stated earlier, I was looking for a Dummies 101 book, how to handle this at such a young age. And unfortunately, I couldn't find anything. And I went onto the internet and I kept typing in like mid-20s, 30s, 40s, anything. And, it's not that we're the youngest ever to go through cancer. It's just that we wanted to start documenting it. I was like, well, if I have nothing on the internet, and the internet's such a big place that you can't find it there, where else am I going to find it at? And so me and Annabelle started having conversations like, why don't we start documenting it and start taking photos and start, having a personal log here. So we were already getting the building blocks started. She was documenting a lot of her chemotherapy sessions, a lot of her doctor sessions, taking photos with the staff. Literally she was already all in on it. And so I'm continuing. I literally picked up the baton from that original project. It was going to be very similar to what's out now, but it would have both their perspectives on it, and it would have been more relationship oriented about how we were able to maintain a relationship during such a tough time. Dating's already so crazy. You know how it could be out there. It's crazy out there. So for us to be so loyal together, and for us to never, do anything wrong to each other, and slip through the back door, so to speak, we weren't messaging other people. When I said I was all in, and vice versa to her, and although in the beginning of the book, I do state that she tried to break up with me just to kind of ease the pain so I don't have to go through the process. But I would never do that especially her, when you needed me the most, I was never going to jump the ship. I was going to be there 110%. And, death never crossed my mind. So I never thought of the worst case scenario. I wanted to put the best foot in front of the other. So that's kind of the backstory. So the process of the book was already going to be put out regardless if she was here or not. But when she didn't survive, I was like, okay, that's when I got to start honoring. That's when I'm going to start continue telling the story. So I picked up the baton and I started running away with it. Just day by day. I made. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. Before, on her last day, as I said my goodbye to her, I kissed her, said I love you. And I told her I promise I'm gonna continue to tell your story. And those were my last words to her. And that's when I said goodbye. And so going to fast forward, it's about February of 2019 or 2020, a little bit before COVID was announced to the world that we were shutting down. I was just daydreaming. I was just unhappy at the job. Both my jobs, I was just unhappy, just daydreaming. I kept telling myself, like, I was just daydreaming, telling myself, like, what would be the perfect case scenario for you to finally start doing this, start putting the pen to the pad, and those thoughts tell you, like, well, if I got paid to stay at home, I'd do it, no problem. And that's impossible to the natural, like, oh, it's impossible. We're never going to get paid to stay at home. Well, COVID had knocked on everybody's door. Unemployment kicked in. And then next thing you know, I was at home, for months at a time. So that's how the process kind of started happening. So day by day, as everybody treated the first couple of weeks of COVID like a vacation. I was eating Pop-Tarts, washing it down with Oreos. I was just getting big and fat. And I kept walking by the mirror day by day. And I was just like, James, you got to do something, man. Like, you're letting yourself go. So I was like, why don't you just start walking? It's just a simple walk, nothing crazy. And then when you come back, when you have that endorphin high, you're thinking clearly. Now we'll start writing, and there was no clear path to it. I didn't say like chapter 1, 7, 9. I just kept writing and writing until I was like, okay, this sounds like this is the order it should go in. But in the process of it was therapeutic. Writing is therapeutic. It was kind of like, this is basically my big diary, to tell how I felt, because so many people who were close to me would ask the process, but like, you're not going to throw all those real problems onto somebody's day. If me and you were passing by each other in the street and you said, how's your day? I'm like, okay, how much time do you got? Let me tell you how I really feel. Yeah, you're not really going to give anybody realistically that time of day. So I was like, you know what, if no one's going to ask and no one's going to hear the full story, let me tell a story from my perspective. And just day by day, I just kept going at it, just chapter by chapter, and tears running down my face, having to walk back and forth from it, because it's a relatively short book. I do have a longer version of it, but I made it shorter just because TikTok and people's attention span are really short. So I was like, let me put all the highlights and lowlights of the story, and then people will get the gist of the story, and I'll be able to articulate and verbalize the rest of it. So that was the business mindset behind that, why the book is so short. But overall, though, I just started to write, and next thing you know, I was like, hey, man, I think we got something here. Like, that's how it kind of just started happening. Just pen to pad, and there was no rest to it. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Any sort of book, any sort of genre, your own personal story, whatever it may be, there's not you don't have to sprint to the finish line, because you're only going to rush the product and it's not going to come out. It's quality over quantity here. So that's kind of what my thought process was, just to pick up the baton for my fiance and just continue to honor her. And then I just started writing, and next thing you know, God's grace just kind of, happened over me. And, that's how I find myself here today.
Yeah. It's an amazing story. And just like you said, it's not too often that you see young people. So normally you see a married couple go through this process later on in life. And so to see you be able to handle it, it's really tough, because it's traumatic. When people are older, you kind of like, okay, you expected, something to happen later on in life. But when you're in your early to mid 20s, that's very, very difficult to swallow, because you've only just gotten started with living. No children yet. You didn't even get married yet. So there's all of those things that would have happened or could have happened that in the light of that doesn't take place. So that's where it's challenging. So, just in, closing, what would you give the audience? What advice would you give them? How can people, I know you're on the ticker tape in regards to being able to purchase your book. And just let's look at that cover again, because I'm technically savvy here, so I just is that awesome or what? And the other thing I wanted to do really quick before we close out, I want to run a commercial, because I really feel like it's very important for us to be proactive. And one of the things that we do, October also is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so that's was another reason why this was so critical to have you on the cover of the magazine, was because it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We have to be proactive in our health. We have to be proactive in living a fulfilling life. We have to be intentional with what we're doing with ourselves. And the more we tell younger people the importance of being aware, the better off they are in the long run. Following up. And so when we come back from this little short commercial, when we come back from this commercial, and the commercial is about life insurance, because we need to have insurance, we need to have coverage in the event that something may happen to our family or our loved ones. We want to make sure that we can send them home properly without the stress financially. So we're going to go to our sponsor, and then we're going to come back. And James, I want to talk about being proactive, because one of the things that we talked about earlier on in the conversation was that she had this for 2 years prior for her even being acknowledged. And I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about what happened there. So we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
Life is filled with many unexpectancies. If something happened to you today, heart attack, cancer, stroke, or diagnosed with anything terminal, are you prepared for what's next? Only 1 out of 4 to 5 Americans have considered that life is unexpected, uncertain, and has some uncontrollable risk. Are you that 4 to 5 that hasn't taken action yet? Call right now for your free quote. Tomorrow's not promised. The protection of your legacy depends on what choice you make in this moment. Call right now.
That is so important, because we you see so many GoFundMe, you hear families always looking to gather money and collect money when a loved one is lost because they don't have any insurance. I know that me and my family have experienced that firsthand ourselves when my uncle passed away many years ago, 20 plus years ago. We had to come together and figure out how we were going to take care of his burial. So it's so important for us. We don't want to talk about these conversations, but these are the conversations that adults must have. And so insurance is one of them. So, that's why I feel led to have to put that on, is because reminding folks, please get the coverage that you need so that your friends, your loved ones, and your family can put you, to lay you to rest properly. They're not struggling trying to figure it out. A few dollars a day helps to relieves all of that stress from tomorrow. So James, we talked about earlier before we went into to sponsorship in regards to the fact that Bells was not aware that she was walking around. So because most people, who don't understand cancer and all of that, they don't understand it. It doesn't necessarily have to be painful. It's not painful. That's why you have to make sure that you're going to get tested and get examined and do your exams on a regular basis, because you can be people walking around with pneumonia. If you're not in touch with yourself, there's no way that you can be proactive. So you have to wake up. You can't be out here walking around in fear. You got to confront it, because the faster you can get in front of it, the faster you're able to overcome it. And increase your possibilities of surviving. So talk to us about what happened. Why was it she made aware? How did that doctor know that someone should have called her, or somewhere along the line that communication should be given to Bells to let her know that she was walking around in such a condition?
Sure. So what was happening in about our 3rd year together is that she was having spotting issues. So she was having spotty issues. We just thought we didn't take it too serious. Just kind of thought it was that time of month. But that spotting continuously happened. And eventually, when she was getting examined in the 3rd year, they were just telling her she had polyps. So she just thought, okay, well, it's just we just take out these polyps and no big deal. So she had a procedure done and she got the polyps taken out. Little did they know, fast forward a couple of years later, is that they only scraped the top part of the polyp out. The roots of the polyp was cancerous already, so that's how she already had it. So when these polyps developed, they were already had cancerous roots. But since they only scraped out the top part, they didn't find anything. So you fast forward 2 years later, and we were in Chicago, and she started having the same issue again. She was spotting. And I was like, you know what, when we come back from Chicago, that's when you got to make an appointment. We got to get this figured out because it's happening too often. And so when the doctor came in, they were basing the charts off the polyps, the procedure she had a couple years earlier. Well, because of that, when the doctor who originally did the procedure was supposed to tell her after the procedure that these were cancerous. Well, the miscommunication never happened. He just never contacted her back. So she just walked around with life for another 2.5, 3 years and had no idea until they dropped the bombshell that, okay, well, no, that procedure you had is still here. And that cancer just continued to grow and grow and grow and lead to, her end, unfortunately. But that's how it all kind of happened. So that bombshell was just dropped onto her just so nonchalantly. She just, was sitting in the hospital room and the doctor's just like, hey, Annabelle, how's the cancer treatment? And that's when she's like, what cancer treatment are you talking about?
And if it was the treatment, it should have been in her records. Like, so the treatment should be documented in the records. That's why it's so important for us to speak up. We assume, because the rule is this: oh, you don't hear back from the doctor's office, everything must be okay. But you have to call back to the doctor's office. One of the things that may have been challenging for her and being aware is because if she didn't have it in the family, so you guys had it on your side of the family, so to be proactive to ask these questions and stuff like that. But when you're not in a family that has those kind of conversations or are going through those kind of challenges, no one knows how to be heightenedly aware of it. And so that's another reason why it was like, okay, this is probably no big deal. Spotting also, when you're on your period, spotting can also mean that you're pregnant or something like that. Nobody wants to hear about that part, but that's a part of spotting as well. So it's so important for us to really be proactive. We cannot operate in fear. You cannot be afraid of this. You got to get on top of it. And even if you got to go to your doctor trembling, go to your doctor trembling. It's better to know than to be ignorant. So what kind of advice can you give based on what you've experienced? And just be frank with the audience, because we really need to hear some truths without being sugar-coated. We really need to hear some truths about what really is important and what matters. So share with the audience, what advice would you give them in regards to what you've learned out of that, lessons learned, words of wisdom?
I would definitely say you can't hammer this home enough is the proactive approach. You rather be proactive than reactive in this life, and you rather be a step ahead than a step behind. Coming from the special needs community, they have clients that we have a routine doctor checkup every 3 months, and it's something that could translate to all of us. The population that every 3 months or so we probably should get a doctor checkup. And just to see where your current condition's at, because you just never know. It's some of those procedures are not the most comfortable. I know no one's ever going to be doing backflips excited to get these procedures done, but it's better than to have to go through the whole entire process, and to experience this pain and experience the possible loss. I would rather just be proactive going forward, and it's a big lesson I've learned, with Annabelle prior to Annabelle and stuff. But, I would just definitely say be proactive. Every 3 months, get checked up. Every 6 months, anything that works best for you. I would just say multiple times a year, get checked up, because you just never know when something starts, when it starts to develop. You know if your daily routine is doing it. You don't know if your diet is doing it. You don't know your current lifestyle is doing it. So just, get checked up. Don't have no shame on it. Just get your butt into the doctors.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And stress plays a major factor. So even with my mom, I know that she was very, very stressed out. So my mom had breast cancer in her 40s. And she passed away at 53 or 52. She passed away from colon cancer. And so for me, my sister, because I'm the baby, my sister got on us. She got on me and my brother and made sure that in my late 20s, I began to have breast exams. So I had started getting my mammals in my late 20s and into my early 30s. I've been having mammograms done every year. And then my colon, I have a colonoscopy every 5 years, and I have that. I started having that in my early 40s because my mom passed away of colon cancer. So my sister stays on top of us to make sure that we are getting these regular checkups, because you have to be proactive. You have to be proactive. You also have to live kind of like a fasted life. So you have to clean your system out every now and then, routinely, so that you clean out your intestines, clean that all out, clean it out. There's things that hide in the crevices that, are filled with bacteria, and that, that eats away all of that. When you're not cleaning it out, you're not filtering out, you're not allowing your system to breathe again. So you have to be on top of your health. And no, I'm not a health and wellness person, but I do know enough to do cleansing on a regular basis. So yes, I do fast on a regular basis, and eat clean here and there, so that my colon has a chance to relax and to breathe, and it can be cleansed out, and staying on top of it, have all your blood work done, and don't be afraid to follow up. It's always best to know than to not know, and don't get panicky over it either. Don't go too extreme over it as well. And so, any closing thoughts you want to share with our guest, James?
Well, I definitely got to say thank you so much.
How can they get in touch with you as well?
Before I get to that, I got to say thank you again for the opportunity. It's a complete honor to be on the magazine. It's not taken lightly. I don't know anybody in my direct reach or in my inner circle who's done such a tall task. It's a blessing. It doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen. It doesn't fall off a tree. So I'm definitely, appreciative of the opportunity to be on the cover. To even say that is mind blowing. It makes me want to fall out of my chair right now. But all jokes aside here, I'm very, very appreciative of you and the Own It platform. In order to find me, you could always search me up, jamesruvalcaba.com. I'm always just one click or one email away. You just never know when anybody needs you, or you could be that last resort that someone needs your assistance for. So my email is open. Feel free to contact me there. Any sort of help. It doesn't have to necessarily be cancer. There's so many different perspectives and lessons within the book, I should say, that, I have a long reach here, so I'm happy to help. So please don't hesitate to contact me. If you don't feel comfortable with email, try my social media, try my direct messages, anything. Feel free to reach out to me. You could find me on all my social media platforms and James M. Ruvalcaba. I'm just one click away. Like I said, I'm being very sincere about that. So please feel free to reach out to me.
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. We're going to show that book one more time, that book cover, which is beautiful. My God, what a beautiful book cover. The Light Through the Pouring Rain. Mr. Triumphant, right?
Correct. Yeah. Mr. Turn tragedy into triumph one day at a time.
Yes, Mr. Triumph to tragedy from triumph. So it's been such a pleasure. Your book captures not only the experience of the loss, but also the experience of family coming together, and two families coming together to support one beautiful individual as she transitioned. And what a beautiful story. For the pieces that I was able to read through, it's just touching. It just shows of how when families can come together, how something that could be so tragic can be so beautiful. As one of our guests, one of our viewers, Joyce, says, how beautiful. It is a beautiful story. Even though it is a loss, it's still a gain in the fact that it couldn't have happened to the right people to have this come out in such a beautiful way. And so, James, I want to just say thank you so much. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is National Book Month. So make sure that you support your local authors, buy books, buy James's book. You can buy it. It's on the ticker tape here. I'll also drop it in the comment section so that you guys can purchase the book from him, support him. He has other work that's out there. What's the other books that you're in? You're having a book release in a couple of weeks.
Correct, on November 7th, For Such a Time as This. So that is dropping in a short 3 weeks from now. So yeah, I'm at it again. I couldn't hold off too much longer. So 3 weeks from now, I'll be on another book as well. And 2022 is going to be a gigantic year, so be on the lookout for that as well.
Wow. Yeah. So make sure I'm cutting and pasting this, and I'm dropping in the comments section. Oh, Lisa, Linda. Oh, what a blessing. Thank you for chiming in, Linda Burnett. Thank you so much for chiming in. All right, I want to make sure we're putting that in the comment section so that they have it. But yeah, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Her mom would have turned, I believe it's 95, and she's promoted. She has some products in the Own It magazine that are very soothing and nurturing for those who are suffering with cancer. And so yeah, there we go. But yeah, and so get in touch with James, connect with him, support your local authors. It's so important for us to do that. And to just raise awareness on literacy, the importance of reading. Reading is fundamental. Also, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Make sure you're proactive. Get your mammograms done. Men, get your mammograms done, because men, we got to protect your tatas too, because they don't talk about it, but men end up with breast cancer as well. So we want to make sure that everyone's healthy. We want them to be healthy and wealthy, right? So that means we want prosperity in every area of your life. And so we want to just say thank you. Wave to our people, James. Thank you so very much for chiming in tonight. James, it is always a super duper pleasure to share the stage with you. 100th heavenly birthdays as of October 5th. Okay, now. All right, Linda. We celebrate. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are out. Have a blessed week. We'll see you tomorrow on the Power of Prayer. Love you so very much. We are out of here.